Okay, so now we have some new information about potions, mostly relating to dungeons, but also relating to raid encounters. And there's been a change onto the Shadowlands Alpha, which functionally changes how potions end up working. Combat potions specifically, not flasks, but combat potions. So let's actually read the blue post and talk through what I personally think about this change to combat potions and where I'm really coming from with where my opinions are currently. All right, so Kyvac says in this next build of the Shadowlands Alpha, combat potions such as primary stat potions and mana potions now have a 5-minute cooldown. Additionally, they are no longer limited to one use per encounter. This is intended to make potion use less of a hassle, less expensive, and more decision-oriented in various situations throughout the game. In raid encounters, players will still have the option of using a potion at the start of the encounter, but using a potion just prior to and as close to the pull as possible will no longer be required. Longer encounters will now offer up more than one moment to use a potion for maximum tactical advantage. Ending a raid boss encounter with a wipe or a win will reset the potion cooldown. In dungeons, spacing out potion usage will place more of an emphasis on deciding the most important times to use them. In PvP situations where combat pots are allowed, such as War Mode Battlegrounds and Epic Battlegrounds, the rate at which you can drop combat can vary greatly. This change will bring a consistent expected cooldown of combat potions when you see enemies consume them. Please feel free to share your feedback on this change in this thread. Thank you. All right, so what is my feedback on this? Basically, we're going to get down into it. This is, I will say that this can be a good change. Let's preface it with this can be a good change, but let's talk about the major red flags that I read whenever I see something like this. First off, we have healers. So they say that primary stat potions and mana potions. They talk about mana potions specifically here. Healers not being able to potion for 5 minutes is such a decision that has to be made by the healer that it's actually kind of insane. And generally, you don't know whether or not you're going to need mana every 5 minutes, especially on healing intensive weeks. So there are healers that consume significantly more mana than others, Disc Priest and Mistweaver Monk. Mistweaver Monk is probably the most noticeable one. And on a healing intensive week such as Grievous, Mistweaver's mana is fairly limited to a point where a 5-minute cooldown, even if they want a mana potion a second time in the 5-minute window, that's pretty rough. So I'm very wary of something like that, especially for healer-oriented stuff, just because of how mana potions end up functioning. That's pretty rough for healers. In addition to that, let's talk about tanks. So tanks, on the other hand, are, I would say more often than not, they predominantly use Lightfoot potions in dungeons to be able to gain extra access to mobility. Ideally, the Lightfoot potions, like being on a 5-minute cooldown, just makes the ability to be able to group up mobs from tanks significantly more of a struggle, but it does increase the advantage of some things like Dark Flight from Morgans, potentially. But like even then, that's like kind of a joke, right? Maybe there's like less value come Shadowlands due to covenants giving tanks more speed, so the ability to be able to group up mobs is going to be less impactful. But in the current state of the game, Lightfoot / Skystep potions are critical to tanks' ability to be able to group up trash mobs. And even DPS, like you'll see group-wide usage of Lightfoot potions or Skystep potions in MDI scenarios. You see it used in like even live key pushing. You'll see all 5 members use like a Lightfoot potion, like whenever they're running down bridges or whatever, to be able to do stuff just a little bit more quickly. Or even just like whenever you'll enter like the Urgroth obelisk, you'll see people all use a Lightfoot potion to be able to get to their position in a reasonable amount of time. So those are the two like major red flags I have with this. In terms of wanting to make the potion usage less of a hassle and more decision oriented in various situations, I actually don't mind that style of thinking as long as it's actually correct for DPS. As a 5-minute cooldown, your potion better be as impactful or close to as impactful as Bloodlust is currently. And Bloodlust does feel very impactful, but in the current state of the game, potion usage feels very lackluster, which is why I am concerned. Like main stat potions are kind of like whatever. They don't feel good towards your class, and they don't impact your class at all. They don't really do anything. But like, there's no real way to make them better or worse. But by restricting them to a 5-minute cooldown, it is going to become more decision oriented. But like, at what cost? And I genuinely think that this is a change for change's sake kind of scenario, and not something that actually needs to be changed, especially whenever you have to factor in stuff like sneaking potions. Sneaking potions are currently, what is the CC break one? There's sneaking potions which increase your invisibility if you're like using camouflage or prowl as like a hunter or a druid, and then there are they're living action potions which will break you out of CC, and sometimes those are very, very powerful. But if they're on a 5-minute cooldown and shared with your battle potion or your Lightfoot, you really have to gauge when you're going to be using your potions altogether. And I think that it is a bit of a reach and almost a change for change's sake. And I do hope that they can reconsider and maybe give a little bit more flexibility to potion usage. I understand that is really cumbersome and really annoying for some players, but the ability to be able to like panic use a living action potion whenever you get stunned, or use a sneaking potion whenever you need like a little bit better stealth, or use a mana potion whenever you're kind of tapped on mana because your tank pulled before you were able to drop combat, so you're able to sit there and drink with that mana potion. Those are all interesting dynamics to how Mythic Plus ends up working out, and the fact that they're stripping it away for no real reason. Like I guess this could be equivalency to like the gear swapping, but even this is a little bit more of a reach than the gear swapping. I would say the gear swapping was a little bit more problematic than more frequent usage of potions. So like generally my problem with it is that utility potions and damage potions are on the same cooldown. Like damage potions are not very interesting. I definitely agree that damage potions ability to become more interesting should be increased, but the fact that they're still on the utility potion cooldown makes it a little bit rough. While the values of them haven't changed, the fact that you need to know that you have to Lightfoot potion in 5 minutes, or the fact that you know that you need to use a living action potion in 5 minutes is very rarely the case. Same with like mana potions and whatnot. And just the ability to be able to have those more readily available is definitely the case. I think it is partially infuriating if you ever get locked out and you accidentally combat potion something that you would rather have pre-potted. That's more relevant to healers. But I don't know. I don't think 5 minutes is the correct number, especially with how the utility potions line up with the combat potions. Maybe if they changed it to something like 2 minutes, it would be more interesting. But 5 minutes seems like it's seems like it's a bit rough. Or maybe they end up like separating out damage potions from utility potions, which I wouldn't hate as well. Like if you put mana potions, so if you had like separations between health potions, mana/utility potions, and then damage potions, you separated those out into 3 columns, I think that would be a little bit more reasonable. But that's even more of a hassle than what the game currently is. I would say that it's even more of a hassle. So I don't know what the real solution is. I just think that this is not ideal, and I just wanted to give my opinion on it. I saw a lot of interesting feedback. I think that I've seen this be more well received than some of the other stuff that they've done in the past. I'm interested to see hear what you guys have to say. If I am incorrect, let me know. Let me know your thoughts and opinions. I actually am genuinely curious as to what others think about this. So in the meantime, that'll be it for me today, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys later.